Hi, Spring Starters. I'm Jenny Branson. I'm the Assistant Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid, and I'm happy to share with you all a little more information about financial aid. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk a little bit about scholarships. I'm going to walk you through kind of a step-by-step of what you need to do for financial aid. Going to talk through some other factors you might consider when coming up with your budget, kind of what you need to do yearly, and then finally who to contact for questions about financial aid. So scholarships, y'all received your scholarship offer with your admission packet or shortly thereafter. Your scholarship is typically for 9 quarters only. So it's for the amount of scholarship that you have times kind of 9 quarters. If you take a few hours during an off quarter during a summer, we can split 1 quarter over 2 quarters. So spread that out to 10 quarters. Typically, we'll award you your scholarship anytime that you enroll, kind of regardless of how many hours you're taking. It does have a 2.75 GPA renewal, meaning that after that first year, after your first 3 quarters, you do have to have a cumulative GPA of a 2.75. Now, most of you as spring starters will be going directly into a 4th quarter. So you will do spring, summer, fall, and then we'll go directly into winter. When you're getting ready to go into winter and I'm awarding winter scholarships, you won't have your first quarters or your first year's worth of grades yet. You won't have your fall grades yet. So I'll be basing the award based on just 2 quarters worth of grades. So say that you have below a cumulative 2.75 after those first 2 quarters. If after we get your 3rd quarter's grades, so after your fall grades come in, if after that point you're over a 2.75, we will then kind of retroactively award you that scholarship. And that's just so we don't punish you for going directly into a 4th quarter. That's kind of the one time it works that way, though, because we do guarantee it until we have all of your first year's grades. Otherwise, once that scholarship is lost, it is lost for good, but it's guaranteed for those first 3 quarters. If you do really well in your first year, say that you came in with less than a half tuition scholarship, or less than $24,000 a year, I should say. If you come in with less than that after your first 3 quarters, when you're going into your 4th quarter, if you have a cumulative 3.6 or higher, we will award you up to $8,000 a quarter. Any quarter that you have that 3.6 will bump your award up to $8,000 a quarter. Okay, so that's how scholarships work. Kind of what you need to do financial aid on a step-by-step basis. Your first step is to fill out the FAFSA. Hopefully some of y'all have done this and complete any follow-up that they ask for. You have to make sure you have an FSA ID, choose Baylor as a recipient. You can see the recipient number there. Baylor Law School doesn't have a separate number. The FAFSA's year is fall through summer. So this FAFSA that y'all are filing now, the 23-24 FAFSA, will be good for the spring and the summer quarters. Starting in the fall, if you're going to take financial aid for fall, you're going to need to fill out a FAFSA again. All law students are independent, regardless of whether or not your parents claim you on their taxes, you're independent. So if you've already filed a FAFSA for this year for another school, and you filed it as a dependent, you need to go back and edit and resubmit it. And also make sure you're not choosing federal work study. We will not award that to you here at the beginning of law school. One thing I should mention on the FAFSA is you only need to do the FAFSA if you're planning to take out loans. If you're not planning to take out loans and are just planning to use a scholarship, then you don't need to file a FAFSA. Step 2, you should receive an email from the financial aid office to your Baylor email saying that you have been packaged. Within 3 to 5 days of filing that FAFSA, you should get that package. It'll take you to BearWeb, and in BearWeb you will see several things. You will see your scholarship listed, and then you'll also see something called the Federal Direct Unsubsidized Loan. That amount will be listed. And then, so those are the only 2 things that will automatically be listed in that package. So to kind of figure out your eligibility, you are typically eligible for this thing called cost of attendance. Cost of attendance is a number that they set. It's what they think you could possibly need for tuition, fees, housing, books, living expenses, all of that. It's about $29,841 a quarter. That's per quarter. That cost of attendance amount changes every summer. So starting in your second quarter, that will be a different amount. And that amount is based on the assumption that you will take 14 hours. But you are eligible for that amount of aid as long as you're taking at least 10 hours. So your cost of attendance will be the same whether or not you're taking 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours. Really just anybody who's full-time, which for us is 10 hours, can get that cost of attendance amount. Just so you guys know, the university is on a 2-semester, 1-summer system. So our quarter system has to be kind of crammed into there. So what that means is when they package you, they're going to package, typically fall through spring is packaged together and then summer is standalone. Because y'all are spring starters, you're going to get really good at this. You're going to get a spring package, then you're going to get a summer package, and then starting in the fall, you will get a fall through spring package. So starting in the fall, kind of the amount that you will be awarded will be about 3 times what it will be for this spring and for that summer quarter. So when you get that package, you'll see something called net cost. So they'll list kind of cost of attendance and then your scholarship. And then net cost is kind of the amount of aid that you can get, amount of loans you can get. If you filed your FAFSA, you'll also have the unsubsidized loans listed. And then what is remaining is kind of your alternative loan eligibility, meaning what you can apply for in other loans. So I know that's kind of confusing. So your cost of attendance is the maximum amount of aid that you can get. You're going to have your scholarship listed. And then if you filed the FAFSA, that unsubsidized loan, and then anything else that you would need, you'll have to go and apply for. So I've already kind of talked about some of this, how you can kind of fill that cost of attendance. First, a scholarship, the next is federal direct unsubsidized loans. These are the ones that come to you just automatically by filing your FAFSA. You get $20,500 every fall through summer with a lifetime limit. It's typically that is going to be spread out over fall through spring. Y'all, spring starters, you're going to receive as much of it as you can for the spring. So if you have, say, a $6,000 scholarship, you would get $20,500 unsubsidized and $6,000 scholarship. And then a little bit of remaining eligibility that you could apply for. And then whatever, say that you have a, $15,000 scholarship. So you'd get $15,000 in scholarship and then about $15,000 in unsubsidized loans to reach that cost of attendance of a little under $30,000. And then the remaining $5,000 of the unsubsidized loans would be offered to you in the summer. Interest does accrue during school on these. So as soon as that unsubsidized loan is dispersed, it will begin accruing interest. These have a 7.05% fixed interest rate. So interest rates for new loans are kind of reset once a year, but these current ones are 7.05% interest rate. They also have a little bit over a 1% origination fee, and that is a fee that the lender is charging to process the loans. So say that you took an $100 loan and had a 1% origination fee, you would still be responsible for paying back $100, but you would only ever see $99 of it because they would take out that 1% as kind of a fee to the lender. You do have a 6-month grace period to pay these back after you drop below half-time. So for most of y'all, that will be after you graduate. They're eligible for consolidation and different repayment plans, which we'll talk about while you're a student here. Okay. So that's one option. So you've got kind of your cost of attendance, the maximum aid that you can get. First chunk will come from scholarship. The next up to $20,500 will come from federal direct unsubsidized loans. Anything else that you still have eligibility for and want, you have to apply for. And you've got several different options. The first and most common is a Graduate Plus loan. I put the website here, studentaid.gov. It's another federal loan. There's no cap on these. other than cost of attendance minus other aid. These are tied very closely to the unsubsidized loans. So the interest rate is always going to be 1 percentage point higher. Interest also accrues while you're in school on these loans. These do have a higher origination fee. However, your cost of attendance will be raised to include origination fees so that you will still be getting that full cost of attendance amount, not the cost of attendance minus origination fees. These also have a 6-month grace period. It's actually a deferral after you drop below half-time. Because they're federal, they're eligible for consolidation and different repayment plans. The only requirement for this, and I think why they are so popular, is that you can't have adverse credit, meaning you can't be bankrupt or in default on other loans. So you don't have to have a certain credit score or anything like that. Another choice is a college access loan. This is for my Texas residents only. And in order to be considered a Texas resident, you have to have lived here for a year before you start school. So you can't gain residency while you're in school. There's no annual cap on these either. However, there is a lifetime cap. They just instituted this. It's $43,202 for people going into the law. So I don't really see these very often, honestly. They do have a lower interest rate. That is the trade-off, and no origination fee. But you and or a cosigner have to have good credit. You have to have a 650 or higher credit score. You have to have 4 credit trade lines open. These also have a 6-month grace period, but because they're not federal, they're not eligible for the federal repayment plans. A very case-by-case basis on an income-based repayment plan. Honestly, I think that we are likely phasing out these Texas Cal college access loans, as we call them, with that lifetime cap now. But it is an option for Texas residents. And then finally, if you and or a cosigner have really good credit, you might consider a private alternative loan. I've listed the website there. We can go look at the ones that Baylor recommends. These really vary when it comes to interest, origination fees, credit requirements, but sometimes I will see our students who have really good credit kind of take a look at these. So to recap all of that, you have your cost of attendance, which is the amount of aid that you can get. The first chunk of that will come from scholarships. The next chunk, up to $20,500, will come from federal direct unsubsidized loans. And then anything else that you would want or need, up to cost of attendance, you could choose between a Graduate Plus, a Texas Cal, or a private alternative. If you are a veteran or an active duty military and have VA benefits, you will need to work with the VA benefits office. That information is in your admitted students packet, but if you can't find it, send me an email. I can get you their contact information. I recommend you do that in plenty of time so that they can process all of that for you. The VA does not send aid until the term actually begins, but they will kind of put a placeholder for you so that you count as being settled. As I mentioned before, financial aid will not award work study to you, even if you selected on the FAFSA. The only exception to that requires a conversation with Associate Dean Corden, and it would be kind of after you've already been settled here and in school. So after you apply for what you need and you've been processed, you're going to want to sign master promissory notes and complete entrance counseling. When you're applying for the loans, it will show you what you need to do, but also when those have been added to BearWeb will tell you what you need to do as far as entrance counseling and master promissory notes. So you'll want to take care of that. And then also you'll want to settle your account. So here's kind of the general timeline. Kind of as soon as you know what you want to apply for, you'll want to apply for a Cal, Graduate Plus, private loans. You can do that kind of 90 days prior to the start of any term. Bills are always generated the beginning of the month after you register. So y'all are going to register for classes here in a couple weeks in December. So you'll get your bill at the beginning of January, and it'll be due at the end of January. I think for summer you will register, I could be wrong about this, but in March. So you'll get your bill in April, due the end of April. That's how it always works. Loans may not appear on your bill yet. Do not panic. Loans typically are going to appear as anticipated aid in your e-bill account 2 weeks before the start date. And then loans and refunds dispersed to you 10 days before the start date. And then if you set up direct deposit, loans will appear in your bank account 5 days before the start date. And as I mentioned, the balance is always due at the end of the month after you register. If your loans have not dispersed yet, that's fine. As long as they're showing as anticipated aid, your bill will be counted as settled. The timelines of when the bill is due and when aid disperses doesn't always line up, but as long as it's anticipated aid, you are settled. If you do not get settled in time, do not panic. You're not dropped from classes or anything like that. Really, the only consequence is that you'll get a $25 late fee and get a $25 late fee each month that you are not settled. And then you won't be able to register for classes for the next quarter. So you do want to take care of that, but it's not something you need to panic about. If you have questions about why you're not settled, you can come see me. You can come see Jerry Cunningham, who's our registrar that y'all will meet once you're here on campus. All right, so switching gears a little bit, I always like to tell people, live like a law student now so that you can live like a lawyer later. So be thoughtful about what you're budgeting, but think about some expenses that you are going to have. Y'all are all going to experience books soon. Books are expensive, particularly in your first year, where you haven't necessarily learned the tricks of where to get less expensive books or how to share with upperclassmen, and you're going to want to write and highlight a lot in your books. You'll get a book list probably in January. You'll be able to go to the bookstore and get those books, but you do need to be budgeting for those. Something else that people don't know about sometimes is bar expenses. So bar expenses, there's something called the Declaration of Intent to practice law here in Texas. And that you will pay for as a 1L, saying, hey, I'm planning to take the Texas bar someday. And it kind of starts the fingerprinting and background processing. You don't have to do it as a 1L. If you do it as a first year law student, you pay $190. If you aren't sure that you want to take the Texas bar exam or put it off, it's an additional $150. And then in your third year of law school, you will actually register to sit for the bar exam. In Texas, that is $350 currently. And if you don't meet that priority deadline, it's an additional $150. There are different fees for different states. So I'd say just make sure you're aware of those fees for the state where you want to take the bar exam. And then finally, a commercial bar prep class is several thousand dollars typically. We partner with Barbary to where if you are a Barbary student rep and do some things with Barbary, you can get that a reduced price. But just be aware as you're building your budget that you are going to have those expenses. Also, many of you already have laptops, but inevitably one of your laptops will die at some point during law school. So I just want you to be aware of that so that you have that in your budget. You know what to do if your laptop dies. Then finally, and this is kind of more towards the second and third year, suit, interview, travel expenses. You will need one suit in your first year and several suits by the time you get to your third year. In your orientation packets, we'll give you some tips for where to go find those suits at reasonable rates. But you are going to need to add those to your wardrobe if you haven't already. And then as you're going through the interview process, depending on where you're interviewing, what types of jobs you're looking for, there might be some travel or interview expenses that you'll have to take care of. So those are some things just to think about as you're starting to build your budget. So here's some other ways to get money. Kind of the most prominent way is summer or off-quarter clerkships. For most of y'all, this kind of the first time that you will take off will be summer of 2025. You'll likely take off that summer. It's 4 months long, and you'll do one or two different clerkships or internships, depending what they are. These can pay quite well. So I always encourage you to continue to live frugally and kind of squirrel away some of that money. We also publish a periodic list of writing competitions and private scholarships. So I encourage you to take a look at those when that list comes out. You'll also see linked on there something called the Access Lex Scholarship Data Bank. Definitely encourage you to take a look at that. Some great private scholarships and fellowships, things like that. I already talked about kind of after first year scholarships. There's also something called Law Day Awards, where if you do really well in a particular class or in a particular organization or are in leadership in the law school, sometimes there are some small awards at an award ceremony in the spring. And then I encourage you to check with your local bar association. A lot of times local bar associations do have scholarships for people from that region. They're typically small, but it's a good way to get some extra money. All right, so to kind of recap some of the things we talked about, all of those steps that I walked you through earlier in the presentation, you're going to need to go through those steps every fall through spring and then every summer. So for y'all, you're going to get really good at it because you're going to have to do it this spring, this summer, and then again in the fall. And then what you do for the fall will be good through the next spring. This will make more sense during orientation, but there's something called Access Lex Max, which is basically personal finance for law students. It's a free course. There's some scholarship drawings associated with it. So look at those sessions. And Access Lex also does something called Access Connects, which is free individualized loan counseling for law students. So I encourage y'all to take advantage of that too. I mentioned some of the expenses that you're going to have to take care of. Make sure you're saving for those or planning for those. And then I also encourage you to adjust your loans based on your experience. I mentioned that cost of attendance number is everything they think you could possibly need. You do not necessarily have to use that full amount. If you take out that full amount and then realize, hey, I don't need that full amount next quarter, reduce the amount of loans you take out. You don't have to take out the max amount every quarter. The last thing that you'll need to do is defer other loans. We're a part of something called the clearinghouse, which the lenders presumably are supposed to check. So we submit a list of people that are registered and enrolled here at the law school, and then the lenders check that. And if you're on that list, they automatically defer other loans that you have while you're in school. Sometimes the lenders don't properly check that, or they're not a part of the clearinghouse. If that's the case, just ask your lender for an in-school deferment form and bring it to me or to Jerry Cunningham, and we can get that taken care of for you. All right, and then the last thing is contacts. So if you have any questions about financial aid, kind of general clarifying questions, your first stop always be me or my colleague Mike, who you'll meet at orientation. Starting in January, so by the time y'all get here, the admission suite will be on the first floor of the law school. So come by and see us in the admissions and financial aid suite. Ask us your questions. If you have specific account questions, you're still welcome to come to me, but I may send you on to Big Baylor Financial Aid, who does all the packaging and the processing. You can go see them in One Stop Student Financial Services. They're in the Bill Daniel Student Center over on main campus for now. They may be moving. I've also put their phone number there and the contact us form there. If you ever have a less than positive experience with them, please let me know. That way I can kind of go behind the scenes, talk to my colleagues over there, and try to get the issue sorted out for you. And that is pretty much it. I know I just threw a bunch of information at you guys, so please feel free to ask me questions. We'll also be doing individualized kind of financial aid entrance counseling or finances entrance counseling. You'll sign up for that here in a couple weeks, and we'll be doing that in January, where I will actually take a look at your account, explain everything to you, make sure that you have a plan and are good to go for February. But in the meantime, if you have questions, let me know. Thanks very much.